It is that time, beginning of the month. You always know what to expect. 2 videos. It is the wrap up and the TBR, and we are here to do that today. I read only physical copies of books, and then I read audiobooks, and I read a total of 8 physical books and 5 audiobooks, which I was not expecting the audiobook one. I don't know why. This is some of the books. Some of them I did own, but I did listen to one of these on audio. This one on audio, but I still have the physical copy. Books. I also wanted to do a new fun thing where I let you guys know what books I'm going to be keeping, what books I'm going to, and what books I'm going to be unhauling. Some books I keep either to lend them to friends or family, to read them again, to just keep them because I annotated a lot and I really enjoy the book, so we'll kind of see. And then most of the books I unhaul just because I have so many books and I'm trying to clear some of the books out that I know I'm probably not going to reread or lend to someone, just so that I can get new books. It's not because I don't like the book or whatever. Usually it's just because I want someone else to have the opportunity to read it and love it. Anyway, but yeah, I thought that would be a fun new thing to do. Anyway, let's hop right into the books and my thoughts on them. So the first book I read this month was Graceling by Kristin Cashore. This is crazy to me that I read this month because although the days themselves felt like they went by super quickly and the month itself just felt like it went by so fast, I feel like I read this book like in August or July. It feels like I read this so long ago. But this book was a great read for me. It was actually kind of shocking because this is a fantasy book, so I was kind of feeling like I was going to read it at the end of the month. Once it started to get a little bit cooler. It's like 71 degrees today. It's so cool and nice out. But I actually read this one first, like literally the first day of September I started this book. It was like hot outside and I literally read this book outside every single time I read it. I went to the park, sat by the lake, read this book. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars and I actually annotated a lot of this book. I enjoyed our main character and her journey that she had, and I feel like the magic realm was really easy to understand in this book, and it's definitely going to make for a good series. My only complaint, I would say, but it's not really a complaint, my only like negative thought really was the ending. I do feel like there was a part that I was just kind of like, why is this happening? I like the chemistry between our 2 main characters. I liked the characters in general, and I just overall really like this book. I think that it was a good fantasy book to kind of get into the fall season, and I'm really glad I read it because I've been looking forward to this one forever, and I'm also just like, this cover is stunning. I love it, and I can't wait to read the rest of the series. The next book I read was actually an audiobook, and that was Winter Garden by Kristin Hannah. I'm such a fan of her writing. I think that she writes such good characters, such good character development. She just really gets you into character-driven writing, I feel like, and her stories are very well balanced. I feel like you usually get a past and present type of thing, you know, and it is very cohesive. Her writing is very cohesive, and I really usually enjoy her books. This one was a 2 out of 5 stars for me. Towards the end, I just really did not like this book, and I felt like it was dragging forever. I was just ready for it to be over a lot of the time. This book focuses on 2 girls as through their like childhood and then as they're adults, and their difficult relationship with their mother. Their mother is from Russia and she's very like closed off and kind of comes across as very cold, which they later learn that she's very like cold towards them and just not very like nurturing of them as children or into adulthood. And as they're struggling through grief and a lot of like hard things that have happened in their lives, they kind of grow a lot closer and kind of figure out more about their mother's past and kind of deep diving into why she is the way she is. And I liked that part. During the first part of the book, I was kind of getting into this whole story and I was really enjoying it. Towards the end, I just felt like I lost a lot of like energy into it. I felt like it was just dragging and I wasn't enjoying it as much as the other ones that I've read. And I love historical fiction, so it was kind of sad that I didn't enjoy it because I do enjoy most of her books, but this one was just, it was kind of a miss for me. So I don't know. I'm hoping that I have a couple other Kristen Hanna books that I want to read in the near future, so I'm hoping that, fingers crossed, I enjoy those ones more. But I think that, you know, there's just always those books that are maybe just not your favorite, and that's okay. The third book I read was Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. This is a graphic novel. I feel like I've been reading the Heartstopper graphic novels since shortly after they came out, and I enjoy them every single time. They're super lighthearted, but they have a good message, I feel like, and the plot is overall just really good. The characters are so adorable. I literally love these books, especially just for like a good palate cleanser when you just need something like warm and good. Like you just need a good, quick, cute story. And even if you're just really in the mood to like read something with illustrations, sometimes I just am in a graphic novel mood. This day that I read this, I actually just went into the library, picked it up, sat in a chair, read it then and there in the moment, finished the whole thing, put it back, went home, and I just love doing that. I love just getting a good book, sitting down in the library, reading it, and it was so fulfilling, and I just needed it in that moment. I was in between books, and I was like, you know what? I just want to go to the library and just pick up a quick read, and I highly suggest you do that. Support local small bookstores, support your library, support the people that support your libraries. I don't know if this is a thing like everywhere, but we have a whole foundation that is the Friends of the Library, and it's great. I love it. They do a lot of like book sales and stuff, and I just highly suggest you do this because it just supports your community in a way that is super easy because it's also free to you. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and I think volume 6 is coming out soon, so hopefully, fingers crossed. The fourth book I read was Earthly Joys by Philippa Gregory. This is Trade Scant series, volume 1. And I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5 stars. It is a very long, I don't think, oh no, I do have it here. Sorry, I thought I didn't have it. I would have held it up this whole time. It's a pretty good sized book, I would say. What, like 500 pages? Yeah, it's about 500 pages. It's very small font. As you can see, I did tab a little bit. I did enjoy some parts of this book, but I do feel like we did have a little bit of repetition. There was a lot of, he would do this, and then he would go do this, and then he would do this, and then he would go do this, and it was like, okay, we're just literally doing the same thing, and this is how his wife would react, and it just felt very repetitive to me. But overall, I think the story is very interesting. As I've said, I'm a very big historical fiction lover, and I just enjoy very character-driven books as well, so I think that this was something that I really enjoyed. It's probably not for everyone, and I don't even know that this one was necessarily for me. I love Philippa Gregory. She is one of my favorite historical fiction authors. I feel like even if you're not necessarily enjoying the plot of the story, maybe, which I wasn't really with this one, you'll get very invested in the story, and you'll feel like you're in it because of the characters, and I love that personally. So I did enjoy this one. Wasn't a top contender for Philippa Gregory books, but I will probably still continue the series at some point, but it's not like a priority thing for me at this moment. The one book that I don't have that I physically read is the 5th book I read. Sorry, I'm trying to see what I rated it. I don't remember. Oh, was Through the Wall by Caroline Corcoran. This was a 2 out of 5 star for me. This book was a mystery thriller. It was not mystery thriller at all. I actually wish that it had been very different. It basically follows this girl, or these 2 different girls, because it goes from 2 different perspectives, and they're next door neighbors, and they have very different lives, and they can basically hear each other through the walls kind of, and they just become very obsessed with each other's lives and what the other one is doing, and how they have very different, basically just comparison. And I feel like if that had been the message that we were following, how someone can seem so happy but they're not, and like how someone can envy you even though you think that their life is better than yours, if that had been the message and we had done something really cool where like something really creepy happened because of that, I think that would have been interesting. But I feel like it just went really offbeat for me, and it was just very like strangely predictable, and I just felt like, is there gonna be a plot twist? And then there really wasn't, and it just, I didn't enjoy it. By the end of it, I was like, what did I just read? So I wouldn't say that I like hated it, but I definitely was not a big fan of this one, and I was definitely disappointed because I was pretty excited to read it, but I really did not like it very much. Following that up, I was obviously still very much in the mystery thriller mood though, and I needed something to cleanse my taste for it from that, because I ended up reading The Last Word by Taylor Adams afterwards, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars, so it definitely was a lot better for me. I'd heard really good reviews about this one. I ended up just deciding to listen to it one day at work on audio, and I loved it. It was really good. I feel like it had a lot of plot twists. It had a lot of that like suspense that you really want in a mystery thriller, and you got a lot of like information about the main character, but also like not too much. Like it still left you wondering about a lot of things, and there were parts that did drag a little bit, but overall I think that this was a good mystery thriller book, and I really loved it. So I would highly recommend this one. I feel like overall in the book community, mystery thriller community, it has pretty good reviews. So if you're looking for a good, fast-paced, keeps you on your feet mystery thriller, this is definitely a good option. The next book I read was The Beauty of Your Face by Sahar Mustafah. This one is definitely a very moving book. I feel like it follows very important topics about school shootings, the Palestinian community. It follows a woman in her past to present tense, and as she's a teacher in a school that has just had a school shooting, and that's kind of happening as you're also going back into her past and kind of figuring out more about her life and what her life was like as a child. Loved the writing in this book, and I feel like it is super moving, and just to educate yourself on some topics and read something a little bit different. The book I read was another audiobook, and that was Before the Coffee Gets Cold by 3 out of 5 star read from me. It was definitely that magical realism, kind of very mystical, confusing book. It's basically about this cafe that you can sit in a certain spot in the cafe and you can visit the past or the future. Basically just to like have a last conversation with someone or figure out how something ends up. Reading it on audio I don't think was necessarily the smartest move. I was kind of just in the mood for something short, and I wasn't really like I wasn't really in the mood to like look around for something to read, but I kind of just wanted something quick and that would hold my attention. And I'd heard a lot of good reviews about this book. I thought that it would be like a nice cozy read while I was doing my tasks at work, and I really did like it. It was a 3 out of 5 stars, so I feel like it was kind of that like in the middle feeling for me. I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the story, but I feel like it did like take a minute for me to get into each character and kind of be like, wait, who is this? Because I feel like they all had K names, or they had very similar sounding names, so listening to it on audio maybe was not the best idea. But so maybe if you're going to read this one, I would read it physically, but I really did like the characters and I liked the plot. I thought that it was really interesting, and I feel like I've been reading a lot more like magical realism books, and they're pretty interesting. So yeah, I would recommend this one. I just realized that I read 14 books, not 13 books. As I was like looking at this, I was like, wait, I'm missing a book that I have in my pile right here. So yeah, that's interesting. That's actually, that really makes me feel good about myself. I feel like I have no memory as I'm talking about books about what books I've read this month. Like I had no idea that I read that many books this month, but cool, good for me. It was The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. This is a classic. I felt very studious reading this. It was a 3 out of 5. I know that classics can kind of get a bad rap, especially this day and age, just because it's a lot harder to get into, obviously, than more modern books. The writing is very different. I feel like it just kind of feels like an uphill trek to kind of force your mind to think in a very different way than we are obviously brought up now. And I feel like historical fiction has kind of been able to bridge that and make it a little bit easier to think in the mindset of somebody in this day and age. You know, this day and age is very different from the past, and I think being able to study and know historical things is so important, and I am just so glad that I kind of grew up reading classics a little bit, not all the time, but like sometimes I do. Every few times a year I will read a classic, and I love it. I think that it's so fun just to read something that is not necessarily in your comfort zone sometimes. And obviously, like, you don't want to waste time reading books that you don't like or a genre you don't like, and I think that's totally fine. But I do think it is nice to step out of your comfort zone every now and then, because that's the only real way to figure out if you like a book or not. And I'm glad to say that I did really enjoy this one. It was a 3 out of 5 stars for me. There were definitely still parts, like, I'm still human. There are still parts of this book that I did kind of struggle to focus on, or I was kind of like, what is this talking about? I don't care about the ball that they went to or the societal things that are going on. But overall, the plot, the characters, I did really enjoy this one. It all kind of irked me about our main character, but I feel like that is also kind of one of those things that you have to be like, okay, this was probably such a common thing this day and age, and it's just crazy to read and kind of see like how their mindsets were back then. So I did really enjoy this one. I actually found the DVD of the movie at my local Goodwill, and I thrifted it, so I am going to watch that at some point. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm excited to, because I did actually really enjoy the story, and I felt like it was, for a classic, it was pretty easy to read, I feel like, and kind of understand more than some that I've read. Was 9 Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty. This one was a 2 out of 5 stars for me. I feel like a lot of people like this book, and it is a Hulu show, which I was intrigued to watch it. I might, but it's not very likely because I didn't enjoy the ending of this book. As I was reading through this, we follow 9 or 10 different characters from their perspective, and I thought that I was really gonna like that. I did like that we jumped perspectives. I like having lots of characters in books and lots of backstory and kind of that mystery element. They're all staying in the same health resort, and you kind of have this like spooky air of like what's going on. The director's kind of sketchy. You're kind of trying to figure out like what they're all doing there, what's happened in their past to lead them here, and I liked that part of it. So the first part of this book I did really enjoy. Towards the end of it, I just thought that there was going to be like a really interesting plot twist, and it was just very predictable. It was very like boring to me, and I just felt very like meh about it and kind of like annoyed at it when I finished it. I just feel like they could have done so much more with this book, because it did have a really strong start for me, but the ending just left lacking, and that makes me really sad. But I'm so glad that I read it and got it off my TBR at least. But yeah, overall, not my fave. The next book was actually The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. A lot of these books were on my TBR, so I'm really glad that I got this one. I've heard really good reviews about it. This one also has a movie adaptation, and I just saw it pop up on my TV the other night, and I thought about watching it, but I was like, I don't know if I really want to watch one of this. We'll see. This book overall, I don't really have too much to say about it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I did really enjoy it. It was just a very cozy read. The characters were really, I just feel like the book overall, the writing was really good. The characters were really interesting, and it was a very sweet book. It did honestly make me cry a little bit towards the end, and I don't really cry a lot with books, but I feel like it was just because we got so close to this character and we got to see a lot of what they went through, and it was just hard to part with a book that was so so wholesome. And yeah, I really feel like this is a good fall read if you're wanting to add this to your TBR for the end of the year. I definitely suggest it. I feel like this would even be like a good like winter book maybe. So I really did enjoy this one. I'm glad that I got to it. I was kind of reading two different books at the same time, and that is so we'll start with this one. I think I finished this one first, and that is Heart and Soul by Jen Frederick. This book is about a Korean immigrant who is adopted by a white family in America, and she grows up there. She kind of just feels very different, and she feels very detached from her culture, and she just feels also just very detached from her family because she feels like an outsider. She doesn't look like them. People are kind of judgmental. And so after the passing of her father, she decides to take a trip to Korea and try to find her birth parents and just kind of figure out more about her life and her culture and trying to attach that. I feel like I really enjoyed this because it is a very important topic. I feel like this is something that probably a lot of people go through, and I enjoyed that part of it. I feel like because this book was partially supposed to be like her going to Korea and kind of having this cute K-drama, this cute like K-drama romance, like if this book had just followed one plot and the plot of like her figuring out a lot, her having this sweet romance, and then like just kind of focusing more on her development, I would have loved that. I think that if it showed a lot of good topics, it discussed a lot of really cool educational things about Korea, and I love that because I also I love K-dramas. I learned some Korean a while ago, so I really enjoyed that part of it and that aspect of it. And I think that the romance would have been cute, but there was, I think like the plot with the romance would have been cute if it had been executed better. But I feel like these two trying to be meshed together in a not very long book, like it's not a short book, but it's just, I feel like pretty typical for a romance or contemporary fiction kind of book. I feel like those two trying to be meshed together just didn't really work. It wasn't very cohesive. The chemistry between the main character and the love interest were just not there for me. And then towards the end, it just got really weird. It got very like that kind of strange, like what's happening K-drama-esque vibe, and I wasn't really like expecting it at all, and I just really didn't like it. It really fell off for me. A lot of the characters that I felt attached to at first just felt very, it felt very like convoluted. It felt like it got ruined because it just fell very off track. So this one, I think I would give like a 2.5 to 3 stars. I really wanted to love this one, and I thought I was gonna love this one, but I just feel like it fell off a little bit for me towards the end, which I feel like is kind of a theme with a lot of the books that I read this month. The next book I read was Lay Your Body Down by, hold on, I don't know who this is by. The next book I read was Lay Your Body Down by Amy Suter Clark. This was an audiobook that I just randomly, another one that I just randomly picked, an audiobook. It popped up, I was like, I'm here for it. It was a mystery thriller about a woman who is just going about her life. She has a very normal life. A woman who is just going about her life when she gets news that her ex from high school was murdered. Ends up going back to the small town to visit, and she ends up kind of taking on this like detective role and trying to figure out everything. She grew up in a very religious, she had a very religious background. She grew up in a kind of like cult-like church with a very like domineering like cult-like leader. And as you're following this story and she's trying to kind of figure out everything about her ex, who is now married and has a daughter, and it has a lot of different characters. It follows her friends, her family, and how she just kind of feels like an outsider in this town, and it follows the church and a lot of the church, like their morals and everything. Overall, I feel like this book had so much information, and it felt very long to me. And there was just a lot of characters in this book, and it took a lot of turns as she's like trying to figure it out. She kind of is like, has these ideas of a lot of different people, and it kind of ties in with like the trauma of her past. and the people that she grew up with. And I really, really, really thoroughly enjoyed this book. It wasn't quite a 5-star for me. It was a 4.5, but I just think that it was so good. And I actually love the ending. Everything that happened, the plot twist with it. I thought it did seem very predictable. I did definitely guess like what was happening, kind of. But in the same way, there were parts that I didn't expect, I'll say. And I personally love the main character, which a lot of times is kind of hit or miss, especially with mystery thrillers. And I loved that the main character did not bash religion itself, or God, Christians, whatever, etc. In this, and that it kind of gave you that light of like, if you have had a bad religious experience or been to a church community that maybe you didn't love, it's not the religion's fault or God's fault. It's people. Some people are just not good people. And I loved that it kind of did that. I feel like a lot of books like this, with like mystery thrillers that follow like cults or like religion and stuff like that, it focuses a lot more on like, oh, they're awful, and like this religious community is like really bad. And I myself have had bad experiences in the church community in my past, but I'm still Christian and I still have faith in God. And I feel like that's a good message to have, that there is like a light at the end of the tunnel, and that there is another community out there for you that is not going to treat you that way, and that God will not treat you that way. And I really liked that. I thought that that was a really good like other layer of this book that I already really enjoyed. So yeah, I thought this was really good. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I actually I'm really glad that I listened to it on audio too, because I feel like it was a really enjoyable audiobook. The narrator was really good, and I really liked this book. It was a solid finish. But then the last book I read for this month was The Ghostwriter by John Harwood. I had 10 books, I believe. I read more than just the books on my TBR, but I only missed one book from my actual physical TBR list that I had for this month, and I was trying to hurry, but I didn't get to the last one. But I did manage to finish this one. This has been on my shelf for a while. It seemed really interesting to me. It seemed like a ghost story. It is kind of like historical fiction-esque. It follows our main character, who's a boy. He has a very strange mother. He ends up talking to this pen pal, but he doesn't really know her. They just kind of converse back and forth, and they're kind of in a relationship, but they've never seen each other, and it kind of becomes discourse between them, and he ends up trying to find her, but there's some shady writings from his mother that he finds, and it's just kind of back and forth. It honestly became sort of confusing to me, as you could probably tell by me trying to explain it. But yeah, this one's not quite my favorite, I wouldn't say. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. I feel like it just kind of really left me confused, and towards the end I was like, I just don't want to read this book anymore. I just wasn't enjoying it. I don't think the writing was necessarily for me, and there was just so many things going on, so many characters from the past, that I was like, how are these all connected? And yeah, overall, I don't think that, I feel kind of a little bit into the book, I could kind of tell that it was not something that was going to intrigue me, but I still wanted to finish it and kind of see it through. So I don't regret reading this book, but I definitely will probably not ever pick it up or think about it again. So, take with that what you will. That is the end. That is all the books. We're gonna go back and talk about what books I am going to be keeping and unhauling, and obviously the audiobooks I don't own, and I probably will not buy them just because I've already read them. I did really enjoy Lay Your Body Down, so I do think that would be one that if I found it, was able to thrift it, I might buy, but because I feel like that was one that I would suggest to other people, but I wouldn't go out of my way to buy it now that I've read it, because I probably won't reread it. Anyway, long story short, let's get into the ones that I actually own. The Ghostwriter, I will be unhauling. This one was not for me, and I will not be telling anyone to read this probably, because I just don't think anyone in my life, my circle, will probably want to read this. Heart and Soul is definitely going to be an unhaul as well. Sadly, I thought this was going to be one I really liked and kept, and I did tab a couple of like cute things, but I just don't think that I don't think it's quite one that I would probably want to pick up again or suggest to anyone. The Storied Life of AJ Fikry, I do think that I will hold on to this one for now. I might lend it to my mom. I did enjoy this book and the story, and I thought it was really cute. So do I think I'll probably reread it? Probably not, but I might lend it to someone. So I am going to hang on to this one. 9 Perfect Strangers is another unhaul. Didn't like this one very much. Age of Innocence, I probably will keep this one. I do like to hold on to a lot of the classics, and I do think that I might reread this one at some point. I don't know, probably not, but I did like this book. The Beauty of Your Face is going to be an unhaul for me, not because I didn't like this book, but just because I feel like someone else would benefit from reading this book, and I like it, but I don't think it's a book that I would reread, and it definitely wasn't like a favorite of mine, so I will be unhauling this one. Earthly Joys by Philippa Gregory. This is the first book in a series, so I do think I will hold on to it for now. It wasn't a favorite of mine, so if I decide to not finish the series, then I will probably end up getting rid of this one, but if I do decide to read the series, then obviously I will hang on to it. And then the last one is Graceling, and I'm definitely keeping this one because I am going to get the rest of the series in the same version because I think it's stunning and I want it on my shelf. So yeah, I did really enjoy this one, and I'm keeping it. Possibly a reread eventually sometime in my life, but not yet. Obviously I still have to read the rest of the books. And yeah, that is it. That's all the books I read for this month. If you stuck around this long, I'm sorry I rambled so much, but that is going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not. I have mostly all bookish content, and I do a lot of like fun vlogs and stuff. So yeah, that's gonna be it, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!